Hey everybody, it's Trips here, and I got tier 3 worst to best. Now, this by no means means that any tier 3 is bad, but this is just my opinion. So, first and foremost, don't lose your shit. So, I came up with the system after having so much hands on, and it's basically how they perform in PvE, PvP, their cost, their damage, their survivability, if there are alternative characters in order to replace them that are cheaper, and their overall performance. So, you know, having so much time with these other tier 3. I felt like this was a good spot. And at first I was looking at some characters like Madara, was looking at everybody else. But anyways, coming in at number 11 is Ant-Man, who has fallen down the list for me. He only performs in PvP, and there are a lot of characters that can perform just about the same, if not better. He relies on his dodge and his tier 3 skill, which kind of suck. And for PvE, he just doesn't crank out enough damage to do anything really great. So yeah, there's that. On the opposite side of that spectrum is Iron Man, who is a PvE master, opposed to his PvP. So, I mean, I managed to do 1.4 mil in Alliance Battle the last time I used him on Mail Blast Day. But you know, they're there because they're only have those 2 points. Now, Black Panther, he is both good in PvP and PvE, but you do have to pick a build depending on which one you want to excel in. And since there are other combat characters that are tier 3, he's just not really necessary, I suppose, but he is still great to have. He's good at PvP, so that's what I would use him for. Next up is Spider-Man. I almost wanted to put Black Panther ahead of him just because Spider-Man can only PvP, and the best part about his PvP is the webbing, but a lot of people will run against him in Alliance Conquest with immunity to shit like that, so that's why he's there. Now, Magneto, I think he placed a little bit above these other guys, but he is both good in PvP and PvE. Doesn't excel extremely well in either one. He's just kind of there, and as a really good option for Mail Blast Villain Day. So I guess that's something. Now, Thor, he was a little weird to place because his PvP is just okay, and his PvE is also just okay. I think that there are other characters that can crank out as much damage as him, but that tier 3 skill and stats do make the difference. So that's why he is where he is. Coming up next, I have Luna Snow. Now, she's really only useful in PvE, but since she has such outstanding damage, plus it's elemental, so she's more useful in more than one world boss ultimate. That's where she is. I mean, she is absolutely fantastic in PvE, but PvP, she's lackluster. Coming up right after her is Sharon Rogers. She's kind of in the same boat, but she is the highest damage in the game, in my opinion. Well, no, not the highest damage, because there's somebody else who's going to topple her, and I'll get to explaining that pretty soon. But she is at number 3 just because she has outstanding damage, but her PvP does suck. Now, Cap, he is my number 3, and that's just because he's fallen down in performance. I don't know what it is about him, but it's harder to push over or close to the 2 mil mark with him. You really have to actually try, but he's still a very great character, and I would recommend him as your first tier 3 because of his price, but that doesn't mean that he's the best. Now, people are going to hate me for this. Tier 3 Mr. Fantastic is completely underrated. He is ridiculous in PvE with a destruction. I outdamaged Sharon Rogers with that is tier 3. Yep, I've said it. Outdamaged her by a pretty large amount, and his PvP is not bad whatsoever. But if he were to build towards PvP more than PvE, I still feel like he'd be able to crank out that damage. But he'd be better in PvP. But I went for the PvE build, and he still does really, really well. So I think he earns this number 2 spot. It's just he's a little pricey. Coming up next is Deadpool. Deadpool's going to hold this number 1 spot for a while, I'm thinking, until he starts to get micro nerfs. But, no matter how you build him, he's going to perform in every single game mode possible and continue to be one of the most annoying PvPers in this game. Now, with that being said, I hope you take this all without a grain of salt. This is just my personal experience with these guys, and haven't been using a lot of them for so long. Anyway, I do hope you guys enjoyed. Please do like, subscribe if you're new to the channel. I really appreciate that, and I look forward to, releasing my next video for you guys. I'm out.